Hello, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Aarna Sahu, host of Aarna's News, where on this podcast channel, I aim to eliminate the gender gap in the STEM fields by featuring inspiring female professionals and highlighting their stories and accomplishments to further encourage girls. Today on episode 82.
I quite literally over winter break sent a cold email to every president or leader or founder of every club on campus just saying, hey, I'm Sophie. I have this crazy idea to start this club that brings people together. I'd love to pick your brain. Can I take you for coffee? And I think I literally sent like 390 emails. It was crazy, but I just started somewhere. And I think the greatest resource around you is your network or your community or people that you can just talk to and learn from. So I think that's been the best resource.
Today on episode 82, I'm pleased to answer guest Sophie Beren. As a founder and CEO at the Conversationalist, a non-partisan educational platform empowering Gen Z to break out of their echo chambers, have difficult conversations, and unify the world, her community of over 100,000 young people are committed to coming together across differences through POVs, the first ever Gen Z talk show, and through their digital network located on the Geneva app. Sophie was recently recognized as a Uniter in America by the White House and was named Forbes 30 Under 30 on the 2023 education list. Sophie's work featured on Good Morning America, The Washington Post, and even on a billboard in Times Square has proved to be the antidote to the polarization we see in our country today. Sophie will continue to unify our generation one conversation at a time. So thank you so much, Sophie, for being here today. Before we dive into the questions, would you like to introduce yourself?
I mean, Aarna, thank you so much for having me. You did such a beautiful job introducing me. I don't know what else to say, but I'm just so happy to be here. And I think the only thing I would add is that when I introduce myself to anyone, I always like to say, my name is Sophie and I am a unifier. I feel like I was put on this earth to bring people together across differences. And I'm so grateful to do that every day at the Conversationalist.
I love that. So thank you so much for being here. My first question for you that we'll dive in is tell us a bit about your career path.
Okay, where do we start? When I was a little kid, I used to tell everyone I knew that I wanted to be the first woman president. I didn't think I was crazy. I genuinely wanted to be president. And my mom and my dad's friends still ask me to this day if that's still the dream. And it's definitely evolved since then. But I think that's really when my career path started to blossom because what I learned so many years later is that the role of a president in our country is to unite the people. And I think I had a strong desire from a young age to want to bring people together, have important conversations. My career path, I would say, took a little bit of a pause, from that young realization till I got to college. I definitely didn't know what I wanted to study. I waited till the last possible second to declare a major, but I knew I wanted to do something to help make the world a better place. So, what really helped me, I guess, build my career was on my college campus. I had this realization one day when I was walking through campus. Have you seen High School Musical?
I have seen it.
Okay, one of my favorite movies of all time. You know the song Stick to the Status Quo?
Yes.
So I feel like my school was literally that. And as I was walking through campus, like everyone was just huddled in groups of people who looked like them and talked like them and shared different and same shared the same background. And for the first time, I realized that maybe what I thought was the key to belonging was actually completely wrong because I came to college to find people who were like me. I was the only Jewish kid in my school growing up. So when I got to college, I wanted to meet other Jewish kids. I joined every club, the Jewish a cappella group. I even found a Jewish boyfriend. My parents were thrilled. But I had a realization that day walking through campus where I saw that everyone who I had met outside of those groups was doing the exact same thing as I was, but with their respective identity groups. And that's really when the light bulb went off in me and realized that maybe what I was taking for granted all along was growing up as the only Jewish kid in Kansas, and being surrounded by so many people who were different from me was actually the best possible thing. But I think we're trained to think that we need to stay in groups of people who are like us. So having that realization on my college campus led me to finally want to do something and change that culture. So I started a club. It was called Table Talk at the time, no pun intended, bringing people together to have these conversations to hopefully help other people like myself branch outside of our groups. And then quickly decided to get a master's while I was in college in nonprofit leadership. And so I turned that club of Table Talk into a nonprofit and spread it to 80 college and high school campuses. And that's when I realized that there was a real cultural shift that needed to happen, and I wasn't the only one feeling this way. So I think that that's kind of what started my career path was, wanting to make a difference in the world, not knowing where to start, and then finally realizing that what I wanted to do most in this world was the direct result of a real experience I had, and seeing that everyone just huddles in echo chambers and communities and silos of like-minded people, but we're missing out on the beautiful parts of life if we're not expanding our perspectives. So that's kind of where it started, and then it blossomed into the Conversationalist after the 2016 election, and it's evolved so many times, but here we are today.
I absolutely love that. Like you found a problem, like a real life problem that you were a part of, just trying to find people who were just like you, even in the college atmosphere. And then you saw how other people were, clinging on to the same belief that if I'm, as a kid, if I want to be successful or if I want to be a part of something, I have to be around people just like me. And you saw that as a college student, and then you decided to address that problem by starting the table talks. And just having conversations from other people and other backgrounds and their stories. And I think that is super inspiring. And from there, you kind of scaled it out. So I think that's super impressive.
Thanks. And Arna, have you ever felt that way, like where you were only surrounded by people who looked like you or talked like you or thought like you? And, what have you felt about that?
No, yeah, that's basically why this podcast was started. Like I come from the Silicon Valley, so over there, everyone is STEM focused. Like it doesn't matter who you are, as long as you're taking the highest math class. That's just what people think is like the societal standard. And then
Wow.
like I just like moved to a different place, like not even 5 minutes away from Cupertino, where it was like the home base of Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
And it was just like a culture shock. Like no one really cared about STEM that way. And I was like, what was the difference between the competitiveness? So yeah, so I was just really confused because there were so many girls and there were so many guys who just wanted to get into, the highest math classes, and there was so much competition that it was so draining to a school where no one really cared about what they were doing. And from there, I just brought in a bunch of different women in STEM, just like you, to just share their experiences, and I wanted to share that with other people.
It's amazing. Isn't that so gratifying when you get to like see a real issue that you feel passionate about? And then I think I've always struggled with like the if not now, when, and if not me, then who? And I think it's incredible that you took that step, because imagine how many people are now gonna avoid feeling the way that you felt because of the platform you're building. So I love that you said that. That's amazing.
Thank you so much. And this is an amazing segue to my question, which is what advice would you give someone wanting to pursue a career similar to yours? And do you have any tips to succeed?
Oh my gosh. Well, it's it's an interesting question because I don't know if I'm the most qualified to give advice. I'm learning and growing and moving and shaking and evolving every day. But I think if anyone wanted to try being an entrepreneur, I would first like really try to encourage anyone to have a healthy work-life balance before you start. I think there's like a lot of toxic hustle culture kind of enveloped in the startup world and experience. Um, but I think for anyone wanting to be an entrepreneur or to build something that really stemmed from a real issue that they saw, I would say start by making sure that there's a need for your idea. I think so often, it's a beautiful trait of our generation to want to step up and solve the problems we see. But I think there are so many ways to, join forces with other incredible people working on the same issues sometimes instead of always starting your own organization, platform, podcast company. So when I was starting the Conversationalist, instead of just going for it right away, I started to do a lot of market research. I hopped on hundreds of interviews to better understand the problem and different people who encountered Gen Z at different parts of their life to better understand what was the issue that needed to be solved. And through that data, it informed how I started to address the issue. So I think for anyone wanting to start something, start with market research, send out surveys, try to get to the bottom of the issue that you're trying to solve so you can really serve your community in the best possible way. And I think also the best thing that I've learned along the journey is that relationships are your greatest currency. People always say, like your network is the most valuable thing that you'll ever build, but I didn't realize that until I was a couple of years in, and it's so true. I think any chance you get, just expose yourself to new people, new friends, send that cold email to your dream mentor, and just try to put yourself out there because at the end of the day, it's who that will help you get to where you need to go.
Absolutely. And it kind of goes two ways because once you start to get that, mentorship and get that advice from someone who's more experienced, once you get to maybe that level, it's good to always give back. If you see another struggling student, who was in your shoes maybe a year ago, definitely help them, because they were probably doing the same things that you were gonna do.
Yes.
So, what comes around goes around, and you should definitely, help people as you get the help later on.
Absolutely. And never have the expectation that you'll get help back. I'm such a believer in always asking how you can support someone, add value to someone else, even if it's just providing a listening ear, connecting someone with someone in your own network, just offering your time and your attention. And down the road, I mean, I'm such a believer that like it will come back and, good karma is real. But I think always go into those interactions without the expectation that you'll get it in return because that's what it's all about. Like engage, engage, engage first.
Honestly. But like later on, when you're in conferences and everything, networking might seem a little bit calculative because people might think, okay, if I talk to this person, maybe I'll get a favor in return. But honestly, I think the best way to network or to build a relationship or to even start a conversation is going in super honest and having actual enthusiasm to wanting to talk to someone. Because if you expect you're going to have a favor or you're going to get someone's like business card to contact them later, that's really not the best way to go.
Oh,
Um, like you should just like start with actual enthusiasm and actual honesty, and then from there on it'll like blossom.
absolutely. And I always say that relationships are a long game. I think people always expect, like, at that conference, you're going to connect with someone immediately, they're going to put you in touch with someone, and then your whole life is going to change. And I think it's much slower than that. Relationships and networking are marathons, not sprints. And starting a relationship now with someone could blossom 10 years down the road. You never know. So just go into it, as humble as possible too. Like you have no clue where this relationship could go, but start building the relationship just with the intent of building it, which I think is beautiful.
Absolutely. And my question for you is, what is a common myth about your profession that you want to debunk?
Oh man. I think when people talk about entrepreneurship or think about being an entrepreneur, there's like a lot of praise for like the girl boss, like someone who gets to, be incredibly social and do all of these things and do anything to make their vision, company, business work. And I think the myth of like glorifying what being an entrepreneur is incredibly false. It's something that I don't talk about a lot, but I think being an entrepreneur has actually been the most isolating experience that I've had. I think I've been so toxically intertwined with the work that I do to the point where, I've really forsaken relationships and friendships. And I think there's like a lot of preconceived notions around like how glamorous it seems to be an entrepreneur. And again, I think being, a leader or having an entrepreneurial mindset is something that everyone should have. But I think being an actual entrepreneur is actually not as glamorous as fun, as sexy as people think it is. And it's actually really lonely at times. And I don't think a day goes by where, I don't question what I'm doing. It comes with a lot of self-doubt and comparison to others. And, it's something that is definitely something I would encourage people maybe even not to go down because it's really tough. But I think people tend to glamorize or glorify it as something really amazing that everyone should do.
And that's so true because being an entrepreneur and doing something of your own is pretty isolating to the fact that, it kind of goes back to table talks. You're trying to find someone just like you and it's like an entrepreneur just like you. But in the like actual realities in the workforce, if you're an entrepreneur, you're the only one with that idea.
I think the confidence that you mentioned is something that I struggle with a lot. I think, graduating college, a majority of my friends went into finance and banking and consulting. And I think choosing the path less traveled and not really having a lot of examples or people that I knew who were starting their own things was really scary. And I think it took actually building a community of my own that had people in it who were starting things of their own and just were self-identified self-starters. And it took time to find my people, like you said, but I think I think the confidence is definitely not something that you're born with, and it's something that I struggle with all the time.
So it's pretty stereotyped to think that being an entrepreneur and having your own product is going to give you success in life. But sometimes, but like not sometimes, like it's always going to be glorified and always going to be stereotyped. So just remember the notion of what you see on TV is probably not what's happening in real life.
My mentor always says that there's no such thing as an overnight success. And I think we forget that. We only see the end result on TikTok, in the news, in the media. Like we only see the end result, but we never see the journey. So I think it's an important reminder that like nothing worth having really comes easy, and there's no such thing as an overnight success.
Absolutely. And on social media, all you can see are like titles and all you can see are numbers. But you might not pay attention to like how many hours someone worked to get to that role. So there's always like a double-edged sword. You could see like the actual like really shiny things, but you won't actually see like the work someone put into for it.
Totally.
All right. And my question for you is if you could step into my shoes, what would you have asked yourself that I didn't?
I think what we've talked a lot about so far are like the myths of what I do, how I got here, and kind of the struggles or the obstacles. But I think, something that I find that not a lot of people ask are like the good stuff. Like what are the good moments that like remind you why you're doing what you're doing? And I think as human beings, we're wired to always focus on like the things that are going wrong or the things that we need to learn from, but rarely, I mean, I struggle to stop and like celebrate the small moments or the small wins. And I don't know, maybe something around like, what like why am I doing this? Or what is like what keeps you going? Like what gives you motivation? And I don't know. Like I rarely get to talk about that. I feel like I'm always talking about the struggles and the challenges. But it's human nature to like always want the grass to be a little greener or for things to be better. I think we're always so self-critical, and I don't know, everyone has a why and a motivation, and so I think that's what I would have asked.
I like that. And my question for you is what are the best resources slash books that have helped you find your career path?
Um, well, I think first and foremost, going back to a community or a network is like the number one resource that's helped me. When I was starting Table Talk my sophomore year of college, I quite literally over winter break sent a cold email to every president or leader or founder of every club on campus, just saying, "Hey, I'm Sophie. I have this crazy idea to start this club that brings people together. I'd love to pick your brain. Can I take you for coffee?" And I think I literally sent like 390 emails. It was crazy, but I just started somewhere. And I think the greatest resource around you is your network or your community or people that you can just talk to and learn from. So I think that's been the best resource. And then two books that have just like completely changed my life are one, Braving the Wilderness by Brene Brown. I could not recommend it more highly. I don't even need to go into it. Just read Braving the Wilderness. It will change your life. And also this book called The One Thing. And that book is really about how I think as human beings, we're wired to want to do everything all at once. But the more we can kind of condense that and really focus in on one thing can help us in life. And then, of course, mixing in some Adam Grant, some Angela Duckworth. Like, there's so many amazing leaders and teachers out there, but highly, highly recommend starting with Brene Brown and then the people around you.
I love that. Wait, quick question. Out of
Yeah.
like the 390 emails that you sent out, how many people like responded back?
A lot. I mean, I'm gonna be honest, it was a long time ago, so I don't remember the number. But I definitely got a lot of no responses. I even got a lot of no's, but I got a lot of yeses, and I was completely surprised. And it was also people who I'd never met before. So even if that relationship, didn't actually end up helping the thing I wanted to build, it was amazing to just learn from new people and see what else was going on campus. But I was surprised that I think like upwards of 50 to 100 people said, yeah, let's get coffee. Um, so as crazy as it sounds, like whatever's holding you back from like sending that cold email or just reaching out to someone new, just do it. Because yeah, you never know what's on the other side of that interaction. Someone may respond, someone may not, but it's always worth it to put yourself out there at the end of the day.
That is so true. There's always a chance that someone's going to say yes. So, there's honestly a 50-50 chance that someone's going to say yes or they're going to ghost you, but
Totally.
like it's a digital interaction, so you'll never like know them after if they say no. But so
Exactly.
what's the worst thing that could happen?
Are
Uh,
you a cold email girly?
I'm a cold email girly.
Love it. Okay, that's amazing. Exactly. Like you never know until you put yourself out there.
Absolutely. And my question for you is, what do you think is a vital factor that shaped your career? What was your life before learning it, and what was your life after learning it?
The vital factor that shaped my career. I honestly think it was having the bravery to step outside of my echo chamber, to realize that life can be so much better when you're surrounded by people who are different than you. I If I had just decided that it was comfortable and okay to just stay in groups of people who were like me, I I'm just trying to think of like all of the people I've been able to connect who have different political viewpoints, or the people who would have never had access to these people or perspectives outside of their own comfort zones. Like, how many of those would have never come to fruition had I not had the bravery to change what was comfortable? And I wish more and more people could learn that far earlier than I did, that, the thing that could be holding you back is simply just being in a silo or a group of people that is preventing you from thinking bigger or growing or seeing the world through someone else's eyes. So I think life before I learned this was definitely an isolating one. I mean, I definitely, it was challenging growing up as the only Jewish kid in my grade for K through 12. And I think if I had known this sooner, I would have encouraged my classmates to learn more about me and we would have had more honest conversations instead of me feeling like I didn't have a voice. And I think on the other end, after learning it, I think I realized that like the best thing we can be is Hannah Montana and like straddle these different worlds and like see the best in both of them. And I think I really learned that after I opened up and expanded my echo chamber and realize that there's a way to bring these different worlds together, and it just takes us stepping outside of them to start that process.
I love that. And also life is about exploration. So like finding new people is a big part of that.
Yeah.
Um, and if I didn't find a bunch of people of different backgrounds, I probably wouldn't even have a podcast channel. So, finding new people and hearing their stories is so important. And this goes on so many different scales.
I love that. And I'm so happy that you had that realization because it's so amazing what you're doing. And imagine, what the world would be like if you didn't have this, right? And it all stems from those realizations. So I just hope more and more people can see that at an earlier age.
But okay, and so because we have some additional time, my question for you is, what's one thing you wish you had known when you began your career?
Oh, I think what I wish I would have known is that comparison truly is the thief of joy. I think starting out, all I had to reference was the people out there who were doing similar things or, were building a life for themselves in an entrepreneurial way, in a way that I really looked up to. And I think I've just wasted so many hours and I've cast on a lot of self-doubt just by comparing myself to someone else's journey that is really not even the journey meant for me. Um, and so my therapist helped me by starting to say to myself when I get into that space of comparing, of like thanking that person, like either out loud or privately, just like, thank you for showing me what's possible. Because that person is out there doing incredible things. And maybe that's something you had never thought about before or thought was possible, but maybe that doesn't even have to be your path. But you can thank them for showing you that that's an option. You could go down that route. You could try to strive for the same thing. But at the end of the day, you have to be responsible for you. And I wish I would have spent more time focusing on myself and staying in my own lane as opposed to comparing myself to the people around me.
I love that because I'm someone who overthinks a lot. So comparing is pretty easy to do versus actually thinking, okay, I can do this on my own. So definitely just knowing that, okay, thank you so much for giving me this route. And just leaving it like that, like thank you for showing me that option. And then
Yeah,
now I'll take it from here. So
I love that. And hey, overthinkers unite. I feel you on that.
all right. Well, thank you so much, Sophie, for being here today. Before we end off, would you like to share any last words to the audience?
First, Arna, thank you so much for having me and for doing the amazing work you're doing. We need more conversations outside of our bubbles and especially around STEM. So thank you for doing what you're doing. Um, and if anyone's listening to this, I mean, what I always like to say is, I think the secret to bringing the world back together really just boils down to one sentence. And I love to share this at the end of conversations because it really leaves me thinking. And the sentence goes, listen to someone else with the same fiery passion you feel for being heard. And if we all did that a little bit more, I think we'd be a lot closer together.
I love that. Thank you so much, Sophie, for being here. I absolutely love talking to you.
Thank you.
And here are my 3 cents on this episode with Sophie. 1. Cultivate empathy and active learning. Understanding people's perspectives is crucial in any entrepreneurship endeavor. Practice active listening to truly understand others' viewpoints, concerns, and aspirations. By honing these skills now, you will develop a keen sense of empathy that will serve you well in understanding people in the future. 2. Network strategically and authentically. Building relationships and networks is vital for entrepreneurial success. However, it's not just collecting business cards or LinkedIn connections. Focus on quality over quantity and seek out individuals who inspire you, challenge your thinking, and align with your values and goals. And 3. Develop a growth mindset and resilience. Entrepreneurship is a journey filled with highs and lows, and embracing challenges as opportunities for growth rather than setbacks, and to also cultivate a growth mindset by viewing failures as learning experiences. Thus, that concludes the episode for this week. If you want to know more about how I relate to these amazing topics, then stay tuned for upcoming episodes. A free way to support this show is by leaving it a 5-star rating and a review on the player you are listening to. Let me know what you enjoy about this podcast, as it's a chance to tell me what you love about the show, and it helps others discover it too. Once again, thank you for finding me, and I hope we stay in touch with each other. Zito, you're listening to Aarna Sahu, the host of Aarna's News. Toodles!